Thank you for joining us on the eve of Mobility Week as we unveil our first zero-emission, all-electric bus to go into Lynx operations. Mobility Week is a statewide celebration of promoting safer, more efficient transportation choices and an ideal time to think about how we can improve multimodal options to reduce traffic congestion and benefit the environment and improve public health. Exciting to cut the ribbon on Station 9 serving the Rosemont neighborhood. And along with being the home of some of the very best firefighters Orlando has to offer and having some of the best equipment, Station 9 was also built with firefighters' health and safety first and foremost. So the station was designed to promote diversity and inclusion in the workplace and includes private individual crew bunk rooms, showers and restrooms, and a secure room for special uses such as nursing.
Thank you for being here today. Welcome. We're glad you've joined us for today's Redistricting Advisory Board meeting. We encourage members of the public to participate by appearing in person, watching the meeting online, or listening by phone and providing live public comment or submitting written public comment in advance. Each person and virtual options to watch and participate in the meeting while it is occurring is available on orlando.gov/meetings. The Redistricting Advisory Board is pleased to hear all non-repetitive public comment. Large groups are requested to name a spokesperson. When you are recognized, please state your name and address, direct all of your remarks to the board, and limit your comments to 3 minutes per item or as set during the meeting. The City of Orlando encourages courteous civil discourse in online settings. Persons making public comment are asked to conduct themselves in the same rules of decorum as they would in a traditional public meeting. At this time, we will take the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I At this point, I'd ask the secretary to take a roll call and determine a quorum, please.
Roger Chapin,
Here.
Alana Brenner,
Here.
Sharon Riley,
Here.
Chuck Holmes,
Here.
Katie Fleury,
Here.
Dan Kirby, Greg Lee,
Here.
Alejandro Pizzini,
Here.
Orlando Robles. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Again, I'd just like to welcome the public. I'd like to welcome our board members and thank them for their participation. This is our first public meeting, so again, thank you for volunteering for this. At this point, I'd like to take a moment and select our vice chair of the group. And if it's appropriate, is it appropriate for me to make a recommendation? Staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think it's only natural that we would consider Alana Brenner for vice chair. She served as our city clerk for not many years.
11 years.
11 years. So I would make that motion and seek a second.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right, great. Thank you, Alana.
Thank you.
Consideration of minutes of the meeting training session on February 21st, 2022. Has anybody had a chance to review those? Any changes? If hearing none, I would seek a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes for the February 24th, 2022 training session.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. At this time, we're going to do introductions, and we're going to do some self-introductions. That will make it easier on everybody, I think. Why don't we start here at the end, please?
Well, my name is Chuck Holmes. I live in the Village Walk area of Lake Nona. Been there since 2006. I've been a member of Orlando since 1996, and I've always been an active, involved person, so I have been honored by taking part in this procedure.
And you're a representative of Commissioner
District
Gray?
1.
Commissioner Gray. Oh, thank
Commissioner
you.
Gray, yes.
Hi, Katie Fleury, District 3. Honored to be here and excited to represent everybody from District 3.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Sharon Riley. I am a resident of District 6. However, I am serving on this board in the capacity of a mayoral appointee, and it is my pleasure to serve.
Thank you. My name is Roger Chapin. Born and raised here in Orlando. I actually live in District 3, but I too am a mayoral appointee to the board.
Good evening. I'm Alana Brenner. As Roger pointed out earlier, I was the city clerk formerly for 11 years, but I've been gone from the city for about 7, which is hard to believe. I'm also a District 3 resident, and I'm an attorney, and currently a community volunteer mostly. So I'm glad to be here.
Good evening. I'm Gregory Lee. I am also a resident of District 3, but I am appointed to serve and represent District 5. I look forward to working with you all and taking part in this process.
Alejandro Pizzini, CEO of A&P Group. We run of our businesses out of our District 6. I'm also a resident of District 6, and I'm excited to be here and contribute to the process.
Staff introductions?
Sure. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Salas, Board Attorney.
Good evening. I'm Beth Krieger, the board secretary.
And Chair, with your leave, we have some staff in the audience. If they could stand up and maybe identify themselves, introduce themselves.
That'd be great.
Nicole Blake, representing, or just helping out with IT and the mapping application.
Megan Barrow, City Planning. Susan Harris of the Office of Communications and Neighborhood Relations.
Hi, Casey Billings, meeting coordinator with the City Clerk's Office.
I'm Candace Cardinal, Administration Coordinator with the Clerk's Office.
Great. Thank you. So now we have board reports, of which I don't think we have any, do we?
Mr. Chair, I do have something I'd like to bring up. If we could revisit the mayoral appointments to the subcommittees. After we had that discussion at the February 24th meeting, it came to my attention that, well, first of all, I'm going to be absent for a couple of meetings. I'm going to be out of the country in the middle of April and the very first part of May. And when I noticed, I already know I'm going to miss a couple of these meetings, but then I also noticed a subcommittee meeting on May 3rd for Subcommittee 1. And I wondered if you and I switched, then I wouldn't miss that one. I would miss fewer meetings. So it's really your discretion
Okay.
whether you want to switch or not, but I thought I would bring that up.
You don't want to just skip your vacation? No, I'm sure we can work that out. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to make that switch for you.
So then I would be,
You would be
Subcommittee
District
3.
5 and 6, and I'll take District 1 and 2.
okay,
And you'll still sit in for District 3 and 4.
right.
Great. And I'm hoping that while we're not going to be appointing any chairman of those committees, we might look for a traffic cop at some point to kind of direct traffic at times. So ideally, that might be the mayoral appointment. But I think those meetings are going to really be working meetings and very collegial and just kind of ebb and flow.
And the meetings are all recorded, correct? So that I could watch the ones that I'm going to miss? The public meetings I'm going to miss?
I believe they're all recorded and they're all
Chair, that's correct.
going to have virtual opportunities. So we talked about well, we're going to get into some of that when we and this may change we may revisit it, but once we get into the rules of order, we're going to talk about absences and consecutive meetings and virtual abilities. So, but as it stands, I'm happy to switch with you. Okay. Do we have any board reports? Matthew?
That is it, sir.
Okay. So let's go to item number 9, overview of the 220 census data, presented by Megan Barrow, planner. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I speaking in here correctly?
Maybe a little closer.
A little closer? Oh, there we go. I hear it. I'm Megan Barrow, Planner 3. I'm here to give you some background data on our census and our city as you embark on this redistricting process. So first of all, let's take a look at the overall results of the 2020 census. The map that you see at the left are our current district boundaries. Those were created after the 2010 census, and at that time, our population was about 238,000 people. When you divide that into 6 districts evenly, the ideal district population that was drawn last time was just under 40,000 people. So the goal at that time was 39,716. Now, with the 2020 census, we have crossed the 300,000 threshold. We're at 307,573. So when you divide that into 6 districts now, your goal is to create an ideal district that's just over 51,000 people, so 51,262. And so here is where we stand now. So obviously you can see we're a little skewed in our growth over the past 10 years. And so that is the challenge going forward, to redraw and look at an ideal district that's just over 51,000. So generally speaking, just because District 1's gross population has grown the most between 2010 and 2020, any new district boundaries are going to shift generally in that direction. So some historical census data that's pretty interesting shows you how we got here. Back in 1950, the city was just this light blue area that you see, and the population was the size of one ideal district now. It was just a little bit larger than Miami Beach at the time. By 1980, it had grown to about half the size that you see now, 128,000 people. By 2010, it's starting to resemble that shape that we see now, expanded a lot to the south and to the northwest. And now here, as of the 2020 census, that's the city that you see now with 307,000 people. So since 1970, our city has been adding almost a quarter of its population every decade. So there's been a lot of growth going on, and that's why you're going to have to see those changes made that we saw earlier. This is just a bird's eye view of the population density in our city. It does vary quite a bit. The dot represents about 2 people per acre, so you can see where it was dense in 2010 and then in 2020. So obviously it grew quite a bit in the southeast, but it also densified in our other districts as well. Now just to look at the demographics. So citywide, our population has gone up about 28.7%, so slightly above that average that I mentioned, but still on track. Our white citizens, our white residents did go down about 10.6%, while all of our other groups increased quite a bit. You can see in the other group, there's an asterisk. That means that it's people who may have marked 2 or 3 or multiple races. So that increased a lot, but it's also people who may have written in Hispanic or Latino as a race rather than as an ethnicity. So that number is going to be a little bit overinflated, we might say, but it's still overall, our multiracial residents grew quite a bit. Within our city overall, our Hispanic or Latino residents also increased from 25% to about 33%. Now we'll look at each district pretty quickly. District 1, all the groups went up and the population went up about 75%. So that's the heaviest in the past 10 years. District 2 followed generally the trends, up about 14.5%. District 3 up about 22.2%. District 4 up about 19.5%. 5 up about 21.2%, and 6 up about 21.8%. So some notable points are, like I said, our Hispanic Latino residents increased citywide, and that greatest proportional growth was in Districts 6 and 2. All our Black, Asian, and multiracial residents increased in all of the districts. Our white residents did decline in all districts except 1 and 3. Those saw a slight rise of about 5.8%. Excuse me. And District 4's changes most closely reflected the citywide trends, followed by 5 and 3. So that's the summary. In the future, if you have any other questions about that information, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Great. Thank you again. Now we're going to move to item 10, which is the consideration of the proposed rules of order, and there is action requested. Where are they on our book?
Right after your letter.
Right after our letter.
Should be right behind your intro letter.
Thank you. Would you just like me to go over this, or is staff going to walk through it?
Whatever your preference is, Chair.
I'll go through it. So this is a draft of the rules of order, and I'll just go through it, and if you have any questions or concerns, maybe you can notate that, and we'll circle back at the end. Typically, our meetings will be held at 6 p.m. Regular meetings will be held in City Council chambers right here on the second floor. All meetings must be open to the public and noticed in accordance with Florida law and the City of Orlando policy and procedure. In accordance with the City of Orlando policy and procedure section 121.1, minutes from each meeting must be complete within 5 business days of the meeting. The minutes will be immediately filed with the city clerk and posted on the board's website. A quorum must be present to conduct business. A quorum is a majority of the members. Meetings may be canceled only by the chair. There will be three board subcommittees that are organized as follows. Districts 1 and 2, along with a mayoral appointee, Districts 3 and 4 with a mayoral appointee, and Districts 5 and 6 with a mayoral appointee. Subcommittee meetings will be in person. The chair shall assign each mayoral appointee to a subcommittee. We've already done that. While the subcommittees are intended to be informal working meetings, at its first meeting, each subcommittee shall choose a member to lead the subcommittee meetings. Each subcommittee should present a redistricting proposal at the board's March 22nd meeting. Agenda. Item 2. A, meeting agendas will be prepared by the city staff at the direction of the chair. B, members may place items on the agenda by submitting them to the city attorney's office at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Citizens who have requested to present a redistricting map proposal to the board must submit their map and request 3 business days prior to the meeting and will have 10 minutes to present their proposal to the board. Citizen map presentations will be limited to 3 per meeting. At the chair's discretion, additional presentations may be added to the agenda, provided that the request is received 3 business days prior to the meeting. Public input. All persons enjoy the right to be heard by the board. Each meeting must include time near the end of the meeting for public testimony. Citizens wishing to address the board must submit a speaker request form to the board secretary. Each citizen may address the board for up to 3 minutes. The chair may grant additional time. One person's time may not be yielded to another speaker. Public comment during a meeting dedicated to one of the 6 existing commission districts shall be organized in the following manner. Residents, business owners, and/or property owners of the subject district, then residents of the city of Orlando, followed by all other persons. Parliamentary procedure, to the extent non-inconsistent with the Florida and local law and these rules, the board shall conduct its business in general accordance with the current edition of Robert's Rules of Order. The board assigned attorney shall act as the board's parliamentarian. Emergency meetings. The chair may call emergency meetings before an emergency meeting is held, and as soon as possible after the call of the meeting, the board secretary must, 1, notice the meeting in accordance with Florida law and city policy and procedure. 2, post a notice of the meeting on the board's website. 3, post the agenda for the meeting on the board's website. 4, call each member of the board and notify them of the meeting. 5, email the meeting notice and agenda to all interested persons that have provided an email address to the board secretary. And 6, email the meeting notice and agenda to all interested members of the media that have provided an email address to the board secretary. Item B, upon calling the emergency meeting to order, the chair must announce the reason for calling the emergency meeting. C, after calling the meeting to order but before conducting business, the chair must report on what efforts were undertaken by staff to notify members of the board about the emergency meeting. Item 6, sunshine law. All questions relating to open meetings and public record laws and policies must be addressed to the city attorney assigned to the board. 7, absences. Members should notify the board secretary as soon as possible if they think they will be absent from an upcoming meeting. Board members should not miss consecutive meetings. Board members that miss more than 3 meetings must report in writing to the city attorney about whether they intend to continue their service on the board. Based on this report, the city attorney may request that council appoint a replacement member. D, the meetings of each meeting must report attendance, and for absent members must report whether the absent member notified the city attorney of their expected absence. E, board members may attend up to 2 regular meetings virtually. A request to attend a meeting virtually must be received by the board secretary at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. Item 8, spokesperson. The chair of the board is the board's spokesperson. Only the board's spokesperson may speak on behalf of the board, the media, and the public. All members of the board have the right to speak to the media and the public about their personal views. That concludes the draft of the rules of order. Are there any questions or comments from anybody on the board? Mr. Kirby?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Mr. Chair. First of all, are there restrictions on the board's consideration of modifications to a map? In other words, it says here that we have to provide agenda items 48 hours in advance. Does that apply to changes to the map as well? Just like to get some clarification on that.
If a map is being presented by another member, for example, a board member would be able to suggest modification and request a vote on that without having to submit an agenda item.
The map discussions in the subcommittees will be fluid. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, and that also applies to this board as a whole?
The intent behind that provision is if a board member wanted to submit a map for discussion prior to a meeting, they would provide that 48 hours in advance for staff to review it and then place it on the agenda. If a map is already on the agenda, of course, board members can suggest revisions at the board meeting without a separate agenda item.
Great, thank you. And then also the question regarding to 7E, regarding virtual attendance at meetings. Are we, is this a issue regarding the just technical availability to make virtual meetings possible? Is that why the 48-hour requirement?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I know the board secretary has sent out calendar notifications to everyone. Is everyone receiving those calendar notifications? Is anybody not receiving them? I do think it's important to accept them, and as soon as, if you run into a conflict, let her know as soon as possible by essentially rejecting the meeting request, and you also might want to follow up with her via email. Really what I'm trying to avoid is that we end up at a meeting without a quorum, and then those who've attended and staff and public will have gone for no reason. So that's really the worst case scenario in my opinion. Not you or anybody missing a meeting, but having a meeting without a quorum. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. At this point, I would look for a motion to approve the rules of order for the District Advisory Board, Redistricting Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Show the rules of order adopted. Let's see here. I've lost my agenda. It's under the agenda tab. No, it's not.
Under 2,
Behind
yeah,
number.
behind number 2.
Behind number 2.
Right there, you're looking at it, yeah. Okay.
I'm on the
Nope.
wrong page. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right. So we've accomplished through item number 10, the consideration of proposed rules of order. Number 11, consideration of proposed communication plan. There's no action requested here. Action will be required at the second meeting. Does that mean we just hold it until the second meeting, or am I supposed to go over it now?
Chair, our communications team has worked really hard on a communications plan, but they'd like the board input, so I just wanted to highlight that at today's meeting. I'll send out an electronic version if we can discuss at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that. We're to item 12, which is public appearances, and I'm supposed to read through this, or would we have people online that want to have public input? Where am I? Am I just talking about the opportunity for public input?
This provides information to the public in case they want to provide online input. The board secretary will know whether or not there's anyone waiting online.
Okay. Public appearances for this board and subcommittees, you can join the meeting in person by appearing here at City Council. You keep up with the dates of all of the meetings. You can join live on a virtual meeting by going to orlando-gov.zoom, and you can see the sign-in. Is that the audience member has, should I be reading this whole link out?
You don't need to, Chair.
Okay.
The board secretary will know if there's somebody waiting.
Okay. You can call into the meeting by dialing any of these phone numbers. So if you don't have video capabilities, you can call by phone. And there's a webinar, and you can utilize features such as raise your hand and wait to be recognized, at which time you will be asked to provide your name and address. You can also provide written public comment, and that should include your name, address, phone number, and topic. Comments are limited to 700 words per item. To submit public comment, you can complete an online form at orlando.gov. You can email public comments at orlando.gov, and you can mail to the city clerk at 400 South Orange Avenue, or you can drop it off at the city clerk's office on the second floor. Written public comments received 24 hours in advance of the meeting are distributed to the board and attached to the related agenda item for public viewing. Comments that do not include the required information will not be distributed or attached to the agenda. All comments received are public record. Anyone requiring assistance to participate in this virtual meeting should contact the city clerk's office as soon as possible. And am I seeking public comment at this meeting?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Are you asking if public comment's available?
I'm asking, is this the time to recognize any public comment before we adjourn?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so at this point, I would seek anyone wishing to address the board from the public may do so. Do we have anybody online, as far as I can tell? No. Anybody in the audience like to come up and get warmed up? All right. All right, well, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and if the board has no other questions or comments, I'd like to consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the eve of Mobility Week as we unveil our first zero-emission, all-electric bus to go into Lynx operations. Mobility Week is a statewide celebration of promoting safer, more efficient transportation choices and an ideal time to think about how we can improve multimodal options to reduce traffic congestion and benefit the environment and improve public health.